something that will slow harvest down, which none of us are too mad about right now. But we've had a really good weather,
Yeah.
so also not mad about that.
It looks like it was going to be an in and out harvest for the year, but this last rain here, during this week, probably got everybody stopped right now on the western side anyway, northwest.
You was getting rain over there, Jason?
Yeah, we got about 2.1 inches at the house. Our
Yeah.
biggest rain all year, pretty much our only rain all year. How much you get there, Rachel? Good rain?
Yeah. Was it Sunday night that it came through like a big storm?
Yep.
It was thundering and raining, and yeah, there was a lot of rain. So that was good.
Yep.
Road isn't as dusty anymore.
That was a nice thing. Kill off some of the.
Oh, did we lose Jason?
He froze up there for a little bit.
He's still there. I think we are live on Facebook. Lisa says that here, so I'll just check on my phone really quick. But we've got part of the team here today, Tom and Jason and Rachel and myself. And we're going to be kind of having more of a discussion about auction myths, kind of the misconceptions people have, and also giving you some really good pointers on how to go about your search if you're thinking about selling land, how to vet an auctioneer or land sale company, and considerations to take when you're starting that process. So let's kind of start out, when I have something wrong with my car, I'm out there on Google researching the best mechanic besides my dad who knows how to fix the issue with my car. And I think people, Google's the first stop that people go to when they're trying to learn something new or trying to find a company to help them out with a service. So we think, we suggest doing the same, researching the best auction company to help you with your land sale. So in the land sale community, there are quite a few players actually who have a conflict of interest when it comes to selling a client's land. And that's just the reality of it. They're not bad people. It's just part of their business. But we want to kind of talk about some of those players, I guess you would say, realtors, farm management companies, and even just your average Joe brother-in-law who's a really great farmer, but might not be really great at planning an auction. So Jason, do you want to start us off with talking about some of these conflict of interest people?
Yeah. I'm working on a remote connection. So if I freeze up, I freeze up. That's just the way it is. But, in terms of conflicts, especially, that's something that I've talked a lot about is conflicts. And I think that unfortunately the land sales business can be just fraught with conflict in terms of people's interests and the dual interests that are in transactions. So, for instance, I've talked at times about, I've always felt like the relationship between the seller of a farm and a farm management company should be somewhat uncomfortable. At least from the seller's perspective, they really need to vet the situation that they're getting into because, oftentimes the farm management model is, a company that collects lots of buyers and then manages the farms for the buyers. Yet they have these independent sellers coming in saying, hey, we want to sell our farm. And as long as the seller's okay with selling into that crowd, that's fine. But it's important to understand that becomes this awkward dual agency relationship in real estate that you really want to think about before sending yourself there. I myself, if I was selling a farm, would want somebody that's completely 100% on my side. But some people are impressed by the fact that they have all of these people they manage for, with readily available funds that could purchase a farm today. They do. That doesn't mean you're going to get full price for it. And that's kind of what it boils down to. If your interest is in achieving the best price, then, you probably want to move off to an independent auctioneer or auction company that doesn't manage farms or doesn't have this client list of readily available friends, because there's something to that. Those people spend the whole day together, the whole month together, the whole year together. They have these long relationships. Yet yeah, the seller comes in, is going to be here today, gone tomorrow. You have to consider as a seller, how much are you really going to mean to these people? Because you're just one cog in a wheel. Whereas those buyers that are typically managed or have the managed farms or, you know, the investment companies and such are sort of the center of the universe. They're the center of the hub. They're always there. You know, you're not just one spoke turning by in one rotation. So I think that probably one of the most important considerations somebody really is going to look at as they get ready to sell a farm is the person I'm hiring, do they have any conflicts? Do they have any outside interests? Are they going to make money off of my sale after the sale? You know, and certainly with farm management company, that's going to be the case. If you're selling with a farm management company, the farm management company is going to have the opportunity to capture that buyer as a new client or sell it into their current client base. And again, not beating that up. That's their model and it is what it is. If a seller's comfortable selling under those circumstances, by all means, go do it. I myself would find it uncomfortable and I wouldn't like it. And I would want to have somebody that was completely independent, somebody that's in my corner and can handle it today.
Yeah, and there's other people too. I mean, we just started talking about farm management companies, but there's a variety of people who have conflicts of interest in the land sale community. You know, we talked about realtors and even just people, you know, you can wake up tomorrow and call yourself an auctioneer. Do we want to talk about, you know, those other people as well?
I think that they at least should be mentioned. Now, realtors don't so much have a conflict as they do a lack of qualification, really. It's not so much the conflict that I worry about there, but where they do conflict is in information and that they provide a different method. And, you know, God bless them. They're out there competing just like we are, looking for farms to sell or looking for real estate to sell. But at the same time, I often get feedback from people. One really particular one was a realtor that actually called me. And a property had been listed with me and he was upset about it. He was upset that it was going to sell at an auction. I mean, he was really upset about it. And he was kind of giving me the beans over the phone about, you know, how dare you sell this thing at an auction? You're ruining the market. You're just going to give this thing away. I feel bad for the sellers that listed this thing with you. You know, they must not be very smart people. Just, I mean, on and on. The guy just completely berated me. And at the end of that auction, I had asked him during the conversation, you know, what do you think that this thing's going to sell for? What would you list it for? And I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think he said something like it, 147,000. And at the end of the auction, it brought 195,000. You know, he just proved himself wrong. And it just was a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding on his part. Now, where that sort of plays into our world is oftentimes a person that's going to sell a farm may go get multiple options. Okay. And if they come to me, they're going to get probably, if they're selling good quality tillable farmland, they're going to get the opinion a farmland auction is the way to go because just plain and simple, it's the best way to sell a farm. If they go to a realtor is going to say, no, a listing is the best way to sell a farm. Sort of like the old adage, never ask a barber if you need a haircut. You know, I mean, we all have our thing and we're going to recommend our thing. But at DreamDirt, we offer multiple options. We've got online auctions. We've got live auctions. We do listing brokerage just like they do. So because we provide every one of the services, I think we're a bit qualified to really say which one of them works the best because we do specialize in land. When you go to a realtor or a licensed real estate agent, they're probably going to say, you know, we should put a price on it, stick a sign in the yard, and that's going to be the best way to do it. You know, they might even throw in some stuff like, yeah, I've been selling farms like that for a long time. That's the best way to do it. You know, these auctioneers out there, they're just pretty much giving these things away. It's better you protect yourself, put a price on it. And when they hear that stuff, you know, the auctioneers are going to be giving it away. It's just wrong. You know, and that advice gets thrown out a lot because unfortunately there's this myth that auctions are the method of last resort. When in reality, auctions really for good quality assets, even medium quality assets are in the land industry are the premier way to sell something. It's not, when you stop and think about when you hear of a record being set, the record is not being set by private sale. Records are set at auctions. That's the reason collectible cars are sold at auctions. It's the reason high-end jewelry or one of a kind, like when a gemstone is found, that's one of a kind, it's sold at an auction because nobody can price it. The same is true with farmland. Farmland is all unique. You'll never know if you use a listing if there was an upside to that. You know, we can all decide a pretty average or potential value. But if you don't use an auction, you will miss the upside. And that's sort of the conflict with the realtor side of things. Now, in terms of relatives, you know, this exists with absolutely every occupation out there. Everybody could apply this to their own occupation. You do something, you're good at it, you're skilled at it. Yet when you look outside, you can look and see that there's a lot of people that think they know a lot about your particular occupation. But when you dig down deep inside, you know that the things they say aren't true. The same thing exists for auctioneers. And here we are to talk about it. The same exact thing exists in the fact that people, you know, sort of are predisposed or have these ancestral thoughts that have been brought up in their lineage or through their family that, you know, maybe it's bad or maybe it's not effective, whatever it might be. And if you are at a point in your life where you have to consider an auction, it really comes to a bit of unschooling yourself and relearning what really is important. And that is important because it really will speak to your end result. It's going to speak to the outcome of where you land at. If you're able to actually unschool yourself and reschool yourself, take out the trash and bring in the good stuff. And, you know, that's sort of my thoughts on it, Kristen.
And that's such a good point, and it leads me into, you know, the next discussion I want to have is this unlearning process. You know, it is such a shame that auctions have gotten tarnished over the years, but you know, we just have our work cut out for us and bringing some of the truth back to light. So we want to challenge people to unlearn certain things. You know, Tom, I wanted to ask you, what are some of these really specific things that, you know, aren't true about auctions, and what is some of the honest truth that we can bring to the table?
You know, a common thing is that we hear is, well, I don't want to give it away. You know, that's something that comes out of a lot, whether it's machinery or if it's land. And, you know, I don't think today that Jason and I has ever given anything away. We've found a true market value of it, what it's worth that day. And, you know, another misconception is using the word auction, that they have to sell it. That's another misconception. You know, in the pretty much the whole United States and everything that governs auctions, there's only two types of auctions, and that's a reserved auction and an unreserved auction. That's something we've talked about, so I'm not going to beat on that. And then the other, you know, is people think an auction's a fire sale. You know, somebody's going to go in there and be able to buy something for half of what it's worth, and that's just not true. I wouldn't. We all of us sitting here on this conversation wouldn't have a business established if we were doing that. We wouldn't have anything to sell, and it's actually quite the opposite. You know, Jason's hit on it a little bit, where we can give evaluations on farmland and stuff, but there's no real way to put an upside on it without the auction method. You know, we could tell them a listing price and list it, but they're going to have that potential, leaving a lot of money on the table because we put a price on it and never found out any of those other circumstances. You know, some of those circumstances is I recently looked at a property here in the area. It hasn't been on the market for I believe 50 some years. So that's an upside to making it a very good auction. And he's already had neighbors asking about it. And I said, you know, the true way to do this is your auction method and bringing in the other people besides your local neighbor or the tenants to keep that honesty, to find what it's truly worth in the auctions, the method to do that.
I agree with that, Tom. And how many times has a farm surprised us? You know, we oftentimes get buyers calling us and, you know, one thing about me and you is we won't price a farm. I mean, that's just against our best, the interest of our sellers. But that doesn't stop a lot of buyers from calling saying, hey, what do you think this thing's going to sell for? We always say, hey, it's an auction. It's going to sell for whatever it sells for. And then they'll say, well, come on, you're in this business. You know what's going on. You got an idea what this thing's going to bring. You know, we always have an idea, But the fact is, we're not going to put a price on it, because what if their idea was higher than our price? That's what an auction is for. It always kills me when, auctioneers will give out some sort of an estimate, or even put them on their website, an estimate should sell for this. I understand their thought process is like, well, if I put this number up here, people will bid up to that number. But what if they would have bid higher? What if our seller's goal is to get the most amount of money, and then we capped it by still putting a price on it? Auctions don't have prices. That means the auctioneer's not going to give you a price. So we never price them like that. And how many of them have shocked me and you? You remember when we went down to Ada, Missouri, thinking, wow, this is going to be a tough auction. We're not sure that we can get what she wants. And then just blow right on past it. Nobody had any idea that farm was going to bring that kind of money. And realtors had it listed for less money for almost 7 years. Go to an auction and the thing sells for more than it was listed for, but quite a bit more, like 75,000 more.
It's not an uncommon deal either, Jason. You're talking about following an auction or a realtor, and nothing against them. God bless them. They're, like you said, they're out there trying to make their living and do their method. But we've followed a lot of real estate auctions or real estate listings, and took them into an auction. And I can think of two here in my area that in the last year, that since Kristen and Rachel's been around with us, that come out of listings with other agents and went into an auction with us. And very recently after those listings, and we added $300 an acre higher than any offer they brought, and the other one I think was like $400 and some dollars any offer they ever brought. And they even put a price on it. So, I mean, you and I always talk, it's tougher to follow those, but we took them to the auction, and they still produced higher than what the real estate agent valued them at and capped them at.
And that's not because you and I are particularly geniuses or anything. It's because of the method, right? I mean, it's simply that auction marketing is different than drip or listing marketing. It acts and it behaves differently. It's not some magic that you and I have. I think you and I do it very well. And I think our team, really contributes to that. But at the same time, that particular method, when used properly and administered by professional auctioneers and the professional auction staff, just is bound to achieve the best result that you possibly can.
And I think Kristen's probably trying to get us back on track, but we can veer off on track on this a little bit, but one thing we always say, kind of going with what we're talking about, is also with the auction method, the advertising they get is far none to where, not to beat up on these real estate agents either. And when we have listings, we kind of do the same, but it's a stick a sign in the ground and pray, list and pray. And when they do an auction with us, we're fully committed, and we're fully invested when at that point when we list into an auction.
I'm following one right now, and I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about, that we're going to be launching shortly. And in that particular case, listed with a real estate agent, seller really needs to get it sold, needs to happen on a timeline. And I was nice for the seller, and I went out even while it's listed, and I checked things out after they called me, just, to see what I'd be looking at and whether we can achieve what he wants or needs to do with an auction. Not one sign on the farm, not one newspaper ad, not even on a website anywhere, not on Zillow, not in Realtor. And that's a pretty difficult situation. When, like you talked about, when you go to an auction, spotlight's on you. I mean, plain and simple, you're getting everything that we throw out. I'm not saying every auction company does the same thing. DreamDirt does things much more differently in terms of the way we do advertising. But with our company, like you said, when you come for an auction, you're going to just get pounded with advertising for 30 days. It's an aggressive, accelerated marketing campaign. That's the definition of an auction. And you're going to get everything. The spotlight's literally on you.
I'd like to talk about one other misconception that I know people bring up. I don't know if we've touched on it today, but the safety of auctions. A lot of times people don't feel like people have a misconception that they're not protected in an auction, that they'll have to sell at whatever price it brings. Let's talk about that for just a little bit.
That is something we missed when we were talking about the misconceptions, and Jason and I can probably talk forever on this as well. But, I would say almost every client that we've had as an auction client after it was done, even more so after we've started doing them online, is just they were so much more relaxed, and they come to us and they told us that that was just a low stress. The stress wasn't there. They appreciate not having the stress and having the control. I mean, the auction, you have 100% control of your asset. And Jason sent a message, got me off track here.
I always do.
And so they yeah, now you got to pick me up, put me back on, Jason. You distracted me.
We're talking about conflicts, and
Yeah.
you were going down the road of the conflicts and the misconception.
And the misconception, the conflict, you're gonna have to still probably pick me up because your comment got me all flustered. So
Oh, I love it.
So
we are all human here, and we have fun, and that's another cool thing with DreamDirt. We got our bloopers in here, so my brain went blank. Sorry.
I'll tell everybody. I just sent Tom a message and said, did he just say relaxed? Maybe I heard it wrong. But
yeah, it come off my tongue that way.
maybe
And
Rachel can take this discussion.
Yeah, Rachel's turn.
Well, we were just talking about, sellers' safety in an auction. I don't know if anyone wants to pick that one up.
No, and I can finish it. In terms of safety, people believe that auctions are unsafe when in fact they are the safest method for a seller to sell.
Mhm.
There's two ways to sell at an auction: reserved, absolute. There are no other types of auctions. So I don't care what anybody tells you. There's two types of auctions: absolute and reserved. If you sell by an absolute auction, first of all, you're going to be sending a strong message to buyers. We just did it last week in the Schenkelberg auction, and look what happened. Prices in the middle 11,000s on up to $175 per CSR point. There's an example. That's going to be maybe the most nervous for a seller because you're agreeing that you're going to sell to the highest bidder regardless of price. That said, there's still protections in that method. If you show up at the auction and there isn't enough bidders there, you feel uncomfortable, you can always withdraw. You cannot withdraw the property once a bid has been taken or asked for. Okay, so that's your protection in an absolute auction. I don't recommend people listing auctions as absolute and then going and seeing if there's enough people there. I recommend that if you're going to commit to the market like that in such a way that it's going to be absolute, you move forward with your auction, unless there's some extenuating circumstance, so there's some reason that you would need to cancel. With a reserved auction holds more protection than a listing does, because in a listing, the seller has no control over the terms and conditions. Okay, a realtor sticks a sign in the yard and the realtor goes and sits at their table and just waits for people to bring offers. Those offers are the terms and conditions. So a buyer is saying, look, here's what I'm willing to do. They're bringing in an offer. An auction is just opposite. And this really is the magic of an auction. This is what people really need to grasp if they're trying to decide between two different methods, listing or an auction. With an auction, the seller's in charge because the seller sets the terms and conditions and then allows everybody to bid under those particular terms and conditions. What's great about that is the seller in an auction can tailor an auction sale to match their life exactly. So let's say there's some sort of a deadline that has to be met, with an estate or trust or just maybe another purchase or reinvestment somewhere. And this divestment is important that it is completed by October 12th. You can't guarantee that with a listing, but you can with an auction. If a seller wants there to be a 10% earnest deposit, the only way they can guarantee that is with an auction. With a listing, the seller might offer $1,000 down. And with an auction, that earnest deposit is going to be non-refundable. With a listing, it's going to be refundable almost all of the time. So if somebody wants to sell something, an auction by all means is going to be a safer method. It's going to be more efficient for darn sure. I mean, because you have this date certain method of selling something. If you say, I want to sell my farm, I'm going to list it. You have no idea what day it's going to sell. If you list it with an auction, you know exactly what day it's going to sell. You can plan vacation around it because you know the exact day that it's going to sell and you know the exact day that it's going to close. Because you're the seller, you're controlling every aspect of it. And again, if that's your method, people always say to me, well, I think I'd rather list my farm so I have more control. And I kind of have to laugh a little bit. When you list a farm, stick a sign in the yard and put a price on it, you have lost all control. Not only have you lost it, you gave it away. But for some reason, people feel more in control that way. They feel like this slower road might actually just be a little more comfortable because they can always just keep saying no to the offers, is what it comes down to. How often do you want to do that? Do you want to put a price cap on it? Do you want to have no idea that when it's going to sell? Do you want to leave these loopholes where buyers can kind of drag you down and wear you out until you finally give up and say, you know, you win. It wasn't worth what I thought. I don't care. You know, your terms and conditions are horrible, but I'm just going to accept it. Or do you go with an auction and say, I'm going to set all the terms and conditions. Everybody's going to bid in 30 days. We're going to close 30 days after that. Boom, done and over with. Simple stuff.
You know, Jason, you picked up right where I went blank, and that was what I was trying to get out of my head there. It was exactly what you was covering, is that terms and conditions that that protects those and makes them so safe in the auction. You know, they're not starting over every time. Right now, we have one that's going to end Friday for Amish couple. It's a house with 23 acres.
Good auction too.
Yeah, it's a nice auction. I think we're going to have an English buyer probably, and that's fine. They'll hook it back up to power and go on. But what I wanted to say, what's unique about that auction is the seller put in there, and it's in the terms and conditions, that they are reserving the right to rent back from the buyers for an extra 30 days if they have to. That's in there to protect them, to be able to, you know, they're doing the typical 30-day closing, and they're going to potentially be renters for 15, 30 days, you know, the max at the 30. And that allowed them that buffer to, well, I think they've found something and they're going to be fine, but that allowed them that buffer to use that. And that was a term and condition that everybody is applying, and it's out there. Everybody understands, everybody knows it. And, you know, in a listing, you know, you might run into some hiccups that way, but it's all out there. It's all advertised. You know, another one, we could go on and on with examples like this. We had that the property that we sold up in Hamilton County, Jason.
Yeah, I remember
it. That the daughter inherited the farm. She could sell it, but the brother had lifetime lease rights for his lifetime until he wanted to farm. If once he retired, then it was up. You know, and that was a term and condition that people bought the farm under, and understanding that they, you know, they don't get to farm it until he's done.
Right.
So those are terms and conditions that set these auctions. You know, I couldn't imagine trying to do them in a listing and negotiate that stuff.
You know, and if you had put that out there as a listing, the thing would still be available. Nobody would have bought it. Who's going to come make an offer on something that with so many unknowns? Because here's what sellers need to understand. There's a real benefit to an auction for the buyer, in the sense you've seen the term today and, you know, over the last decade of crowdfunding. It's where a lot of people kind of come together and they throw money at you know, one particular cause. But I've always called an auction a crowd appraisal. And an auction really is sort of a crowd appraisal. It's where a bunch of people stand around and one guy goes, yeah, I would pay that. Another guy goes, well, I would pay one more. And another guy says, well, I'd pay one more. And then the other guy comes back and says, well, I'd pay one more. They're sort of bouncing their ideas and their thoughts off of each other. And so you might have this group that's competing against each other, but they're cooperating at the same time and helping find the price of something. And so this crowd appraisal inside of an auction is what made that particular auction so successful. Because everybody would have come into it going, I don't know what this is worth. But this one guy says, well, I'll bid this. And then the guy goes, well, I would go a little more. If he's willing to do that, I'll go a little more. You have this back and forth process where it finally, you know, it equalizes, it finds the top. That's the market value. And it's sold. And that is one thing so magical about an auction.
It is. And, just one more thing. I know Kristen probably wants to move us along, but just one more thing I want to add to that, and this is something you and I have talked about, and I often talk to sellers about it, is exactly what you said. It's a crowd appraisal. They said it themselves. But had we taken that to a listing and we go list that at, that high price, we're the laughing stock of the neighborhood. The buyers look at it and they're like, they're crazy. They're out of their mind. And you instantly have a stagnant listing, to where you take it to the auction. They did it themselves. They priced it. We didn't price it. They did.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's just so magical about using an auction is that cooperation between the bidders and buyers in the auction to actually find market value. Now realize, these people that are buying, they want to buy cheaper. And I often say, our job is between the buyer and the sellers. The buyer always wants, or the buyer always wants less and the seller always wants more. But at the same time, these buyers that are in these auctions own farmland themselves, and they realize that bad comparables in the neighborhood are probably less valuable than they could hurt their values of their own land. There's a little bit of that. We've had people come to auctions and say, well, I'm here just to keep the bottom up, just in case something crazy happens. I'm going to be selling my farm in a couple of years, and I don't want a bad comparable in the neighborhood. And that stuff happens in the countryside. It also happens with auctions.
Yep.
All good points. And I just want to reiterate for anyone watching on Facebook really quickly, if you do have any questions, you can always throw those in the comments and I'll ask them to the group here. So just so y'all know that. But I would like to pick Rachel's brain a little bit. She's been
patient.
She's been very patient. So say I'm a land seller. I've decided it's time to transition my land. My first stop is going to be Google and researching and looking up different auction companies near me or who have a good reputation or who have a really nice looking website. I'm just starting the process. How would I go about vetting auctioneers? What should I look for? And what qualifications should I look for? What kind of licensing should I look for? What should people out there know about this process?
Yeah, I think I want to start this discussion and just kind of step into if I was a landowner looking to sell, kind of what I would do just from that perspective, because a lot of people watching this video are probably in those shoes right now. So I'm going to leave the auctioneer and realtor in me behind and step into landowner shoes. Like you said, a lot of the time people just go to Google. It's available for everyone and it's free resource. As long as you have internet or a device to use, which I think nowadays pretty much everyone does. So going into Google and just typing auctioneers in certain city, Iowa, or realtors in Des Moines, Iowa, or auctioneers in Missouri, and pointing to a certain town or even a county. So that would be the first step. And then you would find a result in Google. It would show up a bunch of different links of different companies, or maybe a hometown auctioneer that has the city or the county in their name. And then you would probably click onto one of those links, a few of them. Hopefully it would pull up a really nice website. Maybe it would pull up their Facebook page like ours. Maybe it just shows a map of where they're located and a phone number. A lot of different auctioneer and brokerage companies all have different websites. So that's something to first look into and have that first impression of what does their website look like? Can I see their past results? Can I see their fees? Can I see who their agents are? Or is it just showing me a map of where they're located in a certain town and a phone number and I just have to call? So just look into several different websites that Google produces for you, the several links. And I want to hit the whole hometown auctioneer topic as well. For some reason, people just feel like they have to choose someone from the hometown, either they grew up with or where their land is located, that's their only option, that they have to choose that hometown auctioneer or realtor. And I just get really confused why they would have to, especially when sometimes a hometown auctioneer only sells houses. They only sell antiques. Maybe they're not specialized in land and big equipment and farm machinery. So I just get confused why sometimes sellers think they have to decide on just a hometown auctioneer. I truly believe that everyone at DreamDirt, we have people all over the state of Iowa and Missouri that can help and are willing to travel and go to your land and get drone footage and put signs up and hang up flyers all around the county and surrounding counties. All of our agents on DreamDirt are very willing to do that. So I just get confused when people have to settle on just their hometown auctioneer that sometimes doesn't even sell land to begin with. So I just wanted to hit that point really hard. And when you're looking at vetting auction companies and brokerages, see what free resources they have out there. I know we have ebooks and blogs that you can read. If they have a set territory, or if the agent is willing to travel across the state, like all of us are willing to do. If they're a licensed realtor, if they're a professional auctioneer, do they have testimonials? What are their past sales like? Really, truly vet them out. I would recommend, if I was looking at selling land, I would pick maybe 3 to 5 companies that I would reach out and ask for maybe a booklet or a perspective I don't know how to say the word prospectus. Pros.
You got it right that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got all kinds of bloopers in this one.
Yeah. Kristen works on those for interested land sellers that we have. So we're more than willing to get that information out to you, help you out, even if we're not from your hometown. Tom was saying earlier in our messaging that we're hometown, but we produce big results. So we had that absolute auction last week in Carroll County, and a lot of people were just surprised of how we conducted the auction. Some of them weren't familiar with DreamDirt, which is totally okay. And after the sale and that auction, we've got so many results coming back in and testimonials of people just saying like, wow, you guys did an amazing job with that auction, how you conducted it. It was outside, and there's just great results from that. We are truly impressed by DreamDirt. We just have gotten so much feedback from it. And we weren't technically from that hometown, I guess, because we have an office in Mason City and outside of Des Moines. We don't have an office in Carroll, but we were willing to travel. Jason and Nicole were more than willing to hang up flyers and banners and really explore the community and talk to people in the community. So we were definitely still hometown, but we produce even bigger results than just your average hometown auctioneers or realtors.
And I might throw a few things in with that as well, Tom. You have to go after me. You know, and in terms of Carroll, Iowa, I don't live there. Neither does my wife, but her 2 brothers do. Lots of connections there. So, you know, that entire area, that whole Northwest Iowa, somewhere, you know, I've sold in about all those places, know people in all those places. You don't have to live in a particular town to be a good auctioneer. That really is criteria that shouldn't even matter one bit. But I might also throw in that I think that it's important for people to go look for some other things, like Google reviews is a good place to go look and see whether you can stir something up. You know, most of them are going to be good, but every once in a while you can spot something that might make you go, hey, I want to know more about this. This is something that maybe I'd like you guys to answer. Another thing is look at examples of their work. You know, for instance, our company has won the #1 real estate video in the nation before through the National Auctioneers Association. That's because we do very high quality video work, you know, from drones and professional edits and all that stuff. And we've kind of gotten that down to a science, how to use those as a bit of a digital sale bill in the online world. You might look at some of their print material, their campaign in terms of, you know, what are they sending out? What's their full color flyers look like? What do the postcards look like? How many postcards are going out to particular places? How many newspapers are they going to be in? What do the signs on the property say? Do they use remote signs? Do they use arrow signs? All of those things are more likely to affect your outcome than where the auctioneer lives at. Because where the auctioneer lives at is going to have literally no effect. You know, you might come up with the idea, well, you know, if he lives there, he knows the buyers better and he can interact with them better. He knows the buyers better. We're back to that potential conflict again. You know, do you really want somebody that knows the buyers well? I'm not saying you wouldn't. That's a choice you have to make. But if I was making the decision, I would say I probably want somebody that's maybe a little more independent. Maybe they know them a little bit, very respectful of them. They have, you know, respectful relationship. more towards the don't know each other, because they can do business together without any of those potential conflicts coming in, or thoughts afterwards like, well, he ended up selling it to his neighbor. He ended up selling it to his brother-in-law. Do I feel good about that? Do I feel like maybe something wasn't right? That's my take on it. Your turn, Tom.
The only thing I was going to add to it, Jason, when Rachel started to talk about the hometown guy, and I've watched some of these land auctions where these auctioneers that are local conduct a land auction. Nothing against them; they're good at what they do when they do it, and their typical thing may be household and somewhat of machinery. They don't practice real estate daily like we do. And also, the thing that I've seen and I've witnessed at these auctions is I've seen them leave a seller in a very bad spot. Say the farm is worth $5,000, and that's hopefully what the farm would bring. The auctioneer gets to going and doing his sale and stuff, and the auction ends at 3,000, and he just stops the auction, and he'll say, well, it's a no sale. Yeah. Those are terrible things to do to a client. One, he's not a real estate agent, so he can't do anything to close that gap between the 3 and the 5. He left it in a terrible spot. And
yeah, also, no, I agree with you on that, Tom, because we've seen that happen before. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things you can do to a client. And when you don't practice real estate every day, when you're not a real estate auctioneer with the level of training that you and I have, you're going to be prone to doing stuff like that. And that's just a fact. And I don't care if you charge 1% less commission or 10% less commission. The fact is, any commission difference would have been worth not being put in that spot. And the vast majority don't understand. There's some other dangerous things that maybe this is a whole nother one, but you end up with a lot of those untrained people, and even some of the ones that are actually trained, coming back after a break and referring to an auction as an absolute auction when it's actually a reserved auction. Man, you talk about dangerous. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble as a seller, both your auctioneer not understanding the technicalities of those issues. And, we could go over all those issues in an entire live that was 3 hours long one day. But I think maybe the important point is that the experience that we bring to the table in terms of selling farms and real estate is extremely valuable. Maybe not so much from the outcome perspective, but the legality perspectives of things, and ensuring a smooth, proper legal sale that does not expose you to liability.
We recently just watched another one, Jason, that was advertised as an absolute auction. And after it was conducted, it was not conducted as an absolute auction. And there could have been ramifications there if what we witnessed, if parties had pursued on it, and that put a seller in a very bad position.
It would. And it's really unfortunate that we have that. It goes back a bit to what Kristen mentioned, that, being an auctioneer in the state of Iowa and a lot of states is a completely unregulated business. Anybody can become an auctioneer. And that's why it's so important to be extremely careful, really dig in. I mean, you don't just accept what you hear, even from Tom and I. Don't accept what you hear and what we say here just because we said it. Check it out and corroborate, make connections between what you actually see and what you heard. And I think that that's important for a seller. And that's the reason I apply it to us as well, because it really is that important that you have to vet every little detail and every little fact. And trust me, I've had sellers that have vetted and verified every individual statement and fact, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem. I welcome that, and I smile when they do it. It can be a bit tedious at times, digging up the things to prove to them what it is, but Kristen's smiling right now. She may be thinking of one that I am too as well, that there's just so many details. That's good. Dig in and verify these things. I have no issue with that. And you really should, because unfortunately there are a lot of false statements that are made, in terms of people trying to achieve your business and get your business. They're just, yes.
And there's literally no question we have not been asked, Jason, has there? I mean, about betting us,
no, none.
But that's good. Ask those questions, get those answers. Rachel, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just have one more piece of advice. for people vetting out companies. And I just kind of want to highlight you, Kristen. You do amazing work for us. The advertising and marketing that you put together of the land auctions that we have is truly incredible. I love all the work you do. And I think a lot of people looking at our site, DreamDirt.com, if you're exploring our website, would be really impressed on it as well. I just want to throw out there that don't have that fear of we're going to cost a lot, that our marketing and advertising is going to cost you a lot just because it looks good. Maybe that's why you want to choose a hometown auctioneers, because maybe they're not as fancy, or their marketing and advertising maybe just isn't as cool as DreamDirt. So you think that they're going to be a cheaper version. I just want to point out there that sometimes they could be more expensive than DreamDirt, especially because of the packages that we can offer sellers. Don't let our really cool designs that Kristen makes up for DreamDirt, don't let that scare you at all. It should be a good thing, because that's how your land is going to be marketed. And we aren't just an auction and brokerage company. We are true market professionals as well. I know Jason and Tom get fired up as that as well, as that we love marketing and advertising farms. It's something we do, and it's included in our package to our sellers. So that's the last thing I just wanted to mention.
I just want to add to that, one thing, and I'll be quiet too, but she was talking about the work that you do, Kristen, and the work that our whole team does. We pretty proud to have all of you guys as part of our team. Iowa State grads, we're proud to have very highly educated people that work for us. And she was saying about the cost of fees. We can probably actually do that stuff cheaper for our clients because we have you in-house. If Jason and I have an idea, Kristen, we go to you and we tell you what we're thinking, and you can do that like that for our clients. To where if we had to do that outsourced and third party, maybe that person would not get that because it'd be an additional fee, or they just don't have those resources. But we have these resources in-house that we can take care of it at split seconds. So that's all I wanted to add.
Cool. Well, I think that's a great way to end this discussion. I'm all pumped up for the day, gonna get back to work. But yeah, thank you guys for such a great discussion. I think our discussion today was really helpful for those who own land and are thinking about selling it. If you're just popping on now, this video will go up in the videos tab on our Facebook page. You can skip through to the parts that you want to watch, and you can skip the parts or where we were just normal people and fumbled up a little bit. But always, we are up here on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. for DreamDirt TV. Rachel's got her live going on. Jason's got his live going on. Our agent, James Sprinkle, has a live on Fridays. So we're always on our Facebook page coming at you with more resources, more information, and just always here to answer questions and help out. So with that, everyone have a great, enjoy this nice fall weather, and we'll see ya when we see ya.
Stay safe.
God bless. Stay safe.
Bye.